Hello and welcome to Until Saturday, the Athletics College Football Podcast. What a week. I am Arkansas Field Storming survivor David Ubben.
I'm Chris Vannini, couch storming senior writer for The Athletic.
I'm Damien, really. And I'm Damien Harris, disappointed former University of Alabama running back that has never lost to Vanderbilt.
Not even on College Football 25. Rankings are just numbers, guys. It's a little early in the season. We don't really know, but not one, not two, not three. 6 unranked teams pulled shocking upsets this weekend, including 5 losses from teams in the top 11. Shook a lot up. We're going to unpack all that. Vanderbilt, Arkansas, Washington, SMU, and other unranked teams wins in week 6. And at the top of those rankings, Alabama loses, Tennessee loses, Michigan loses. What does that mean for their playoff hopes and their rankings in the Athletic 134 from Chris? We're going to take a look at that and how the playoff is reshaped after a crazy week of games. And as always, we're going to play your voicemails. Nicole, a Missouri fan, had some beef with Sad Husker Nate and some officials. And Tucker wants to know what the heck is going on with TCU. You can always leave a voicemail on our Until Saturday phone line at 316-462-9852. And of course, another week, another edition of the Heisman and Criesmans, highlighting the best and worst of the weekend to wrap today's show. So much happened this weekend, guys. We got to start with a weekend that had so much of what we love about college football. What did you love most?
Just the fact that we saw absolutely everything this weekend. I mean, we saw the biggest upsets. We saw a continued Heisman campaign in Ashton Jeanty. We saw tush pushes. We saw a tush push fumble that resulted in a game-sealing touchdown for a return.
Shout out to UConn.
We've seen players come back. Connor Wegman at Texas A&M with all the uncertainty, all the doubt that people had in him going into this week with Marcel Reed being the guy the past couple weeks. I mean, we saw a goalpost in the river, in the Cumberland River. I mean, we saw literally everything this weekend. And I just love the fact that you got so many different things to just enjoy in one weekend.
Chris.
So your favorite thing was everything.
Literally everything.
For me,
I take David to a buffet.
Hold on. Everything except, although I did love seeing the goalpost in the river, everything except the way that Alabama played. But please don't get me started on that right now. Please.
We will get to Alabama, and Damien has thoughts. Do not worry about that. For me, I look at 2 things, both of them at Cal Miami. One, the awesome game day crowd. Started at 6 a.m. local time. They sold out the stadium, a place that, you don't always associate with diehard college football. They really lived up to everything you'd want there. And then also Michael Irvin on all 4s on the sideline at the Cal Stadium as Miami is he's willing Miami to make that comeback, which ended up happening. Everything we love about college football happened in Berkeley this weekend.
Elite sign weekend from the Cal fans. Unbelievable signs. We had the kid make the kick for $700,000. That's been a great segment. I know Pat McAfee is polarizing for people for a lot of things, but he does add a level of fun in game day. And it was unfortunate we didn't get Corso to start the day. He's got some illness or something like that. But I think McAfee adds a little bit of randomness to the show that personally I enjoy him on game day more than I don't enjoy him. Now, for me, I think it comes down to, we talked about it a few weeks ago, and Damien, you talked about that tweet in the column that I had where I don't like comparing the college and NFL. I feel like there's a lot of please like my sport when college fans talk about the NFL sometimes, but I do think the biggest difference, and I've said this, is that every weekend some team or some fan base is playing a game or watching a game they're going to remember for the rest of their lives. Yep. And we got 10 of those on Saturday. I lost count of how many games we saw, and you see the joy and the jubilation in Earmuffs, Damien, Nashville, and in Fayetteville. And you see these scenes, and man, there's just nothing else like it in sports. And it is awesome. And I absolutely loved it. And I'm going to remember this quite a bit, which leads us to our first game we're going to get into. Tennessee goes into Arkansas, loses 19-14. Introduces a lot of questions. Arkansas gets a huge win there. We'll see what that means for Tennessee the rest of the season for their playoff hopes. But Damien, what were your thoughts as you watched one of the biggest upsets of the weekend?
The biggest thing for me, and I don't know, maybe I have too high of an expectation, but where's the Tennessee defense at? This front 7 that we've talked about is so great. James Pierce Jr. These guys are great at rushing the quarterback. They keep everything in front of them. They swarm from sideline to sideline. Well, where are they? I haven't seen them making any plays really affecting the game. I mean, I know Tennessee started down 0-3. Then they go up 14-3. But like the defense isn't making any game-changing plays. James Pierce Jr., my dog, the Dame's dog, a couple weeks ago. Like, where's the production? Where's the element of we gotta really worry about this guy? We gotta circle this guy on the depth chart because we can't let him wreck the game. They're not doing enough to get the ball back in Nico's hands. And I feel like that played a big part in why Nico felt so uncomfortable last night. Arkansas did a lot of things, and at times, like you said, the score didn't reflect it, but they were in control of the game on both sides of the ball. So to me, I'm trying to wrap my head around where is this defense and when are they going to start stepping up and making these game-changing plays to where we can say, yes, this is one of the best defenses in the country.
Chris, what did you take away from this one?
One of the things you said, which was Arkansas should have won this game by a lot more. If we're being honest, they had 5 red zone trips, only scored 19 points off of that. And for Tennessee, I look at the offense. Nico had 5.4 yards per pass. And I think this offense, which was putting up 60, 70 points the first few weeks against nobodies, has a lower floor than I think we expected.
Yeah,
you go to Oklahoma, you have an ugly game, you win it. You think, hey, this is a team that can win ugly if they need to. This is a second ugly game now, and I think it's pretty clear Nico is a freshman, redshirt freshman, going through that process, such as running out of bounds on the last play of the game, right near you, Ubben, because you were there in Fayetteville for this game. He nearly ran into you on that final play. What was that like? What was that like being there?
Man, that was a great environment. Again, it was one of the things that makes college football great. You know, it's kind of funny. So I'm from Arkansas, and Arkansas, the last time they beat a top 5 team in the AP was against Tennessee in 1999. I was at that game with my dad a bajillion years ago, Chris. The stadium looks a lot different than it did back then, but that was a huge win, a great atmosphere for that game. The field storming was one of the scarier ones I've been a part of. It felt like the last one I was a part of, I'm trying to remember. Well, I guess it was Colorado had a few, but the Tennessee one against Alabama a couple of years ago was pretty crazy. The Colorado one was a little bit more controlled and a little bit less crazy when they rushed the field against Nebraska in 2023. But one of the things I wanted to get to is this running game has been shut down the last couple weeks, and they were on fire the first 4 weeks of the season. Oklahoma limited them. And what Arkansas did was Travis Williams Sunday night came to Sam Pittman and said, hey, I want to give them something they haven't seen before. And basically it was a 3-3 front. Now you talk to people about the 3-3-5, and a lot of offensive coaches kind of compare it to the triple option on offenses. It's very, very different. And I remember doing a Coach's Confidential before Georgia TCU, talking about one of the big reasons why TCU had been so effective all season was they were running this under Joe Gillespie, and it was really messing teams up. And part of the reason was that 3-3-5, you have defenders coming from weird angles that make it hard to account for where everybody's coming from and run the ball effectively. And Tennessee seems like they're having a lot of issues here, and this offensive line was one of the weakest spots on the team. But Damien, I wanted to ask you, what is it like trying to run if you're a running back and trying to read your blocks? What changes when you're going up against that 3-3 stack where you can kind of move those 5 defensive backs as well? What is that like?
Well, like you said, it creates a lot of weird angles for offensive linemen. And as a good running back, a smart running back, you want to know where your linemen are going. So if I see the linebackers shaded over to the left a little bit, okay, I know the guard and the center are going to work up to this specific backer, right? Well, if all the linebackers are stacked right behind the defensive lineman, the down linemen are even, the linebackers are even. So you don't know where everybody's going. So whenever you have so much uncertainty, the linemen don't know where they're going, the running backs don't know how to read their blocks, you analogize it perfectly. It's like playing the triple offense on defense. So nobody really knows where to go. The communication breaks down. And then those pre-snap reads that you get, those pre-snap keys that as I'm a running back, I'm like, okay, well, the linemen are here. The linebackers are slanted this way. Well, I know this run is probably going to bend back this way, or it's got a good chance of bouncing outside to the left. When everybody's stacked in like this even looking front, you just don't know where they're going to end up, where the linemen are going to go. And it just creates a lot of chaos and a lot of confusion.
Yeah. On the flip side of that, you know, it's interesting that so much of the conversation about this game coming in was, hey, you know, Sam Pittman on the hot seat, all this stuff. I kind of think I get it. It's a results business, but the Pittman hot seat thing has been kind of silly to me. I get that he's lost games. I get that the results haven't been what people wanted. But when you look at the totality of this picture, okay, he inherits a program I think they had lost 20 SEC games in a row.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at it, he made a bad OC hire last year in Dan Enos. He seems to have corrected it. He loses Barry Odom. He brings in Travis Williams, who has been fantastic this year. Their defense has really, really improved. And Bobby Petrino seems to have really fixed a lot of things offensively. They lose Rocket Sanders. They lose KJ Jefferson. The offense is still a lot better than it was a season ago. And this is a team that's a couple plays away from being 6-0. And Arkansas is not a place where you're going to go 10-2 every year. I get the frustration, but I still think that this is a situation where you're probably more likely to do worse on a coaching hire than better. And for now, you're getting the results that can get you off the hot seat. And Sam Pittman is a guy that it seems like a really good fit for Arkansas.
Here's the problem, though. Their next 3 of their next 4 games are LSU, Ole Miss, and Texas. So you lose those, and
right.
you lose those, and that feeling goes a little bit different.
Chris, what does this look like for the Athletic 134? Where does Tennessee fall in your rankings?
Tennessee falls from number 4 to number 9 for me at the moment. There's a lot of SEC teams here that are really, really tough to place. They do have the win at Oklahoma. They do have the blowout win over NC State, which now doesn't maybe look as good as it did at the time. Mm-hmm. And you're going to have the situation with SEC teams where they're going to have bad losses and good wins, because that is kind of how the league is shaking up. So Tennessee's down to 9, but that can change very quickly. And the way your wins and losses look as time goes on can change, and that can impact your ranking. If Arkansas goes down to lose 3 of their next 4 games, that's going to hurt Tennessee. So it's kind of week to week. I still got Tennessee in the top 10. I don't feel great about it, but I don't feel great about anybody in the top 10.
Yeah,
right.
I was joking with some people last night. Weeks like this are the reason why I will never be a top 25 voter. There's no good way to do it. Elsewhere, Washington beats Michigan in Seattle 27-17. Jed Fish's first win over a ranked opponent. Chris, are we done talking about Michigan? Are they going to be a factor? What did you make of that ball game, and where did Michigan go in your rankings?
I think we're officially done talking about Michigan for CFP, for Big Ten. Looks like a team that's going to finish in the 8-4 range, which we thought. They're down to QB3. Jack Tuttle comes in, actually played like decent. Okay. Like he wasn't terrible. He was all right. But the bar was low. The problem is what I said in week 1 was that Michigan doesn't have any skilled players on the outside to help those quarterbacks, no matter who is there. You got Colston Loveland, a really good tight end. These receivers are not what they need to be. And so there's a bigger talent problem at Michigan coming off the national championship. So this is also a trend we'll see on the show in this weekend of a team traveling 2 time zones over and losing. I think teams are 1-8 now doing that, and this is one of those.
One of the other ones. Go ahead, Damien.
Oh, I was just going to say, because Chris brought up the lack of talent at the receiver position. Is this one of the most talentless quarterback rooms in America? I mean, I think we have to talk about this. Between Alex Orji, Davis Warren, who was the backup that went in?
Jack Tuttle. He graduated high school with Chris Olave.
Nice.
He's been playing college football for a while.
Great nugget. Doesn't necessarily help in the quarterback conversation because they're bad. I mean, how many teams have we seen down to QB3 midway through the year? And honestly, that could have there's so much transition from game to game where every year we're seeing 2 quarterbacks. One quarterback doesn't do good enough. Then you send somebody else out there. Then we're in game 6. The second best guy doesn't get to it. Then it's the third best guy. I mean, this has got to be bad. I mean, Chris ranks everybody. Like, where do you rank this quarterback room?
I mean, it's like, I keep thinking about this in Florida State. Like, there just aren't good options to come out of. But it also doesn't help that you don't have a lot of good skilled players on the outside to help. And I think it's a complete problem for this Michigan offense. It's not just the quarterback. It's multiple levels.
And in 2024, if you've got a quarterback problem, you don't have excuses. You had a chance. The portal's open. Tampering, wink, wink, is not legal. Nobody does it. Doesn't happen in college football. You can get a quarterback, especially if you're, the reigning national champion. Some people like to play in those offenses that just produce a top 10 pick. Elsewhere, Temple, you mentioned it, Damien. Temple has a disastrous tush push that loses them the game. Minnesota's went a little bit better. I will say a little weird. They didn't kick the field goal. They decided to score the touch to go for it on 4th down. kind of an iffy call. We'll get to some of the
that was such an iffy call. You know what's funny? Here's funny. So I showed my wife that clip. That's when I was like, yeah, sure. Everybody missed this because, Vandy was upsetting Bama and so on and so forth. So I showed her the clip. She's like, what's Temple's record? And I said 1-4. And she's like, well, I see why, because they didn't kick the damn field goal. And I was like, well, I mean, you might not be wrong. I don't know.
Yeah. So PJ Fleck in Minnesota get down there. They have a 4th and goal at the 1. Instead of trying to kick to win the game or go ahead with like 50 seconds left, they go ahead and push it, get in the end zone, sort of. Chris, when you look at this game, I still think USC can be somewhat of a factor in the playoff conversation. What did you take away from this game?
So I didn't see most of this game live because other bigger games were going out at the time. And as I looked at the box score and kind of looked back at everything, USC ran the ball better. They were better on 3rd down. This came down to the turnovers.
Yeah.
USC had 3 turnovers, all of them at midfielder in Minnesota territory, including the interception at the end of the game to clinch it. And Miller Moss just didn't make the plays he needs to make. USC's offensive line held up pretty well, which has not been very good. They held up pretty well. It's just Miller Moss was not the guy to get them over the hump here. And Damien, you've been feeling this for a while as well.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, did we kind of overestimate Miller Moss's floor from the get-go? I mean, he played great against LSU the first couple weeks of the season, but just kind of more recently, I've seen a decline in exactly what Chris has said, those plays that need to be made. The offensive line is holding up. You have options. You have threats outside. You have a good run game, but Miller Moss just isn't producing those game-changing plays. So to me, when I look at it, yeah, he's good. I'm not going to sit here and say he's a bad quarterback because he's shown he's good, but I just think he's one of those kind of mid-level floors but lower ceiling kind of guys.
I think he's a guy you see him make some crazy not crazy throws, but really, really impressive throws. I mean, him and Nussmeier were dueling in that first game, but we had such a small sample size with him that you haven't seen him play a ton. And then the more you learn quarterbacks, the more you see them. It's like when quarterbacks come back to school for another year and everybody's sort of hyper-analyzing. You can see, oh, this guy's got some warts that we may have to work on. I think some of those are coming out for Miller Moss. One of the big warts I did want to get into, we mentioned it with Lincoln Riley, is after the game, it's moderated press conferences a lot of the time. You have Lincoln sitting with 2 players. A reporter asked him, did he think Minnesota got in on that last the tush push? It was an iffy call, whatever. Lincoln cuts him off, very reminiscent of the Mac Brown. Was it Major Applewhite or Chris Sims? It was a while ago. Simpson says, don't ask him that. Okay? This is another situation where it's just not going to go well for you. USC's got a lot of rivals, but Lincoln Riley versus the media seems to be one of the hottest rivalries in the streets these days. You look over the course of just the last few years, okay? You start with, guys, I'm not going to LSU. And 24, 48 hours later, he's going to USC. Technically correct, but it just makes you look bad. He bans the reporter last year. Some interesting circumstances there, but ultimately, I think that's probably a net negative for you. The Bear Alexander thing where he says, oh, there's no story here about Bear Alexander, not playing. Bear Alexander is redshirting a couple days later. These are situations, they're just unforced errors that you don't have to do. You don't have to engage in. And I think the problem with Lincoln is the more you try to control the narrative and shape how you're viewed, it creates another narrative that never reflects well on you. It just makes you look thin-skinned and makes you look like you're grasping at control when the best control is winning games, and they're not winning games right now. And people forget, like, that moment last year after Bedlam, as a Bedlam loss, and people are talking about, are you going to leave? And it's not a good look. And I think it undermines also that you got a player up there talking, representing your program, and you don't trust him to handle himself very well. Damien, from a player's perspective, if you're sitting there and your coach says, I don't trust my guy to answer this question, don't ask him this question. I mean, it's not an unprofessional question. It's a
right.
question.
By no means.
Damien, what is that like from a player's perspective?
Well, to be honest, to me, I didn't really take it as he didn't trust his guy to answer that question. He just wanted to control the narrative, kind of like you're talking about. He wanted to put his stamp on whatever the question was. Oh, I didn't like that question, so I don't want my guy to answer. I didn't think that it was a trust situation. So if I'm that player, I'm looking at Well, why is this just about you? You know, I'm one of the key players of this team. I'm a guy who is available to the media. And me being a guy who now has been through college, been through the NFL, whenever that guy gets to the league, there's going to be reporters flying into the locker room as soon as the game is over, before he can even take his pads off. And they're going to have cameras in his face. They're going to have microphones in his face, ask him all type of questions for it. He can even get changed and showered. What was he going to be able to do then? I'm telling you, Bill Belichick is not going to run in there and say, "Oh, well, you know, hey, don't ask this guy this question." I mean, let's ask me. I'm the coach. Yeah. No, because they have a that's a part of your contract as an NFL athlete, is to have availability to the media. So to me, it wasn't as much about trust. It was more kind of feeding into what you said, Ubben, of controlling the narrative and making it about what he wanted it to be about. But also, I see this as a negative situation where a player has an opportunity to express himself and collect himself, give a well thought out answer, and continue to prepare himself for what he's going to have to face at the next level. And his coach completely took that opportunity away from him for a reason that we don't know why.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, and also, I wanted to get your guys' perspective on this, because I have seen a lot of people talking about, oh, well, they were trying to bait the player. They were trying to get him. They were trying to trap him. It was a trap question. Well, you guys have experience asking guys questions. Like, that's a part of the job as a reporter.
Do you not expect to get asked, do you think the game-winning play was a touchdown? Like, it's the number one thing you should be prepared for. My one comment on this. So nobody is more open with the media in college basketball than Tom Izzo. And he'll tell you everything he feels. And so you get benefit of the doubt when you're open with the media, because then they understand where you're coming from. When you're confrontational, you don't get that benefit of the doubt. And you always think there's some ulterior motive to what's going on. One time I covered a game 15 years ago. Kalen Lucas, the point guard at Michigan State, skipped out on the post-game availability. The next day, when Tom Izzo had his weekly press conference, he made Kalen Lucas come with him and talk to the media at the podium. He makes everybody be available at all times, because that's part of growing up and teaching your players to do that. And I very surprised Lincoln continues to act like this with the media when there's clearly bigger things going on, such as USC has now fallen from 11th to 32nd in my 134 rankings. The last several weeks now, as they've gotten into Big Ten play, it's not going well. You fall behind at Michigan, you make the comeback, but still lose in the end because you can't make a tackle. You have Wisconsin, you fall behind big in that game and have to rally once again. Now you go to Minnesota and you can't beat a Minnesota team that is not very good. And so USC in the Big Ten here, and the cross-country trips you're continuing to have to make, this is going to continue to be a problem, I think. And the way we felt about USC a couple of weeks ago, coming out of that Michigan game, they're back to feeling like the USC of old again.
And this is a team that 5-7 in their last 12 games. Not good. Not the right trend lines. A team whose trend lines, though, are very, very good. I apologized to SMU on the show on Thursday for writing them off after losing to BYU and after needing to come back to beat Nevada. And then I think most of us, I think I did, picked Louisville anyway. Yep. And what does SMU do? They go into Louisville and win
close
outright.
So how do you put respect on Louisville's name after they lose? That's crazy to me.
They win that game 34-27. Kevin Jennings, 394 yards of total offense, completed 78% of his passes. We saw a lot more of why the staff loves him. He gets to drop the sledgehammer in the locker room after the game and smash the Cardinal Stone. 7 straight road wins for this team. They still have Louisville still has to play Clemson and Miami. We thought coming in, I was like, I don't know that SMU can contend for the ACC, but they can be a factor. They can be annoying. We can get to mid-November, and they're still technically in play for that title. Didn't seem like that was going to be the case a couple weeks into the season. Now, BYU's pretty underrated. SMU's playing better. I'm starting to believe in this team. Chris, what are you making of the Ponies?
I said on Thursday, this is the battle for 4th place in the ACC. It might be a little bit higher now, because check out the rest of SMU's schedule: at Stanford, at Duke, Pitt, Boston College, at Virginia, Cal.
I didn't hear a game in there they can't win.
I was going to say, those are all winnable.
There's no Clemson, there's no Miami. Those are all winnable. Not to say they will win, but they are rounding into form as a complete team here, and that's a schedule that could get you into the ACC championship picture next month. And if you're in the ACC championship picture, you're in the CFP picture. So keep an eye on SMU here.
Well, but Chris, Clemson and Miami can't lose the rest of the way, right? These teams are unbeatable. You know, we never have surprises on Saturdays, do we? How high did SMU go up in your rankings after winning that game?
Dave, I was like you. I kind of tossed SMU to the side after the first couple of weeks. They didn't play well against Nevada. You lose in an ugly game to BYU, in which you're in the red zone like 5-6 times. You can't score a touchdown. But now, like, BYU looks pretty good. Like things are really going in a good way for SMU right now.
Yeah, the choke boat has a way of, deceiving us. If you're enjoying listening to the podcast, please consider subscribing on Apple, Spotify, Overcast, wherever you listen, and drop a review as well to let us know your thoughts on the podcast. We love hearing from you guys. When we come back from break, I'm sorry, Dane. It's time.
It is time.
We got to talk about Alabama Vanderbilt, and we get a voicemail from Nicole talking about Missouri. Going to get the shaft from the officials. All right. Back after this. The most shocking result from Saturday, easily, in a week full of shocks, was Vanderbilt holding serve on the day Nate Bargatze hosts Saturday Night Live to beat Alabama and improve to 1-60 against top 5 opponents in school history. Chris, you pointed out also in your story on The Athletic, this is the first time Vandy has beaten Alabama since September 29th, 1984. That is before any of us were born. Chris, we got some thoughts on this game, but we've got Damien Harris here.
Hey, what
was it like watching this?
Wait. Pull the curtain back. We got a text from Damien last night after this game. He said, I'm going to need you to clear the floor for me here. He's got a lot to get off his chest.
I do. I have a lot.
It's yours now.
And I'm going to start exactly where I should start. Number 13, Malachi Moore. Now, brother, I don't know you, but I'm not trying to disrespect you. But what you did last night on that football field was complete and utter bullshit. You are a 2-time captain, somebody who has your hand and footprint at Denny Chimes, and came back and decided that you wanted to be a leader on this team, somebody that is bringing in a new coach, bringing in a new regime, but you want to be a cornerstone piece, a foundational piece of this organization that keeps the tradition alive. And then you act like that. You go in the media and you talk about, yeah, we're the standard of college football. We know we're going to get everybody's best game. We know that every game that we play is going to be somebody's Super Bowl. Well, how did you show up yesterday? The only thing I remember seeing from you is slamming the guy's head on the ground unnecessarily, punching yourself, throwing your mouthpiece, kicking a foot in front, like not even in a way of like, okay, nobody's looking. Like, I'm bigger than the game. I'm bigger than the team. I'm bigger than this moment. Hey, everybody, look at me. Look at how pissed off I am. Look at what I got to say about it. Let me pick up a ridiculous 15-yard penalty for literally no apparent reason. And you call yourself a 2-time captain, somebody that deserves your hand and footprint at Denny Chimes. I can tell y'all what would have happened in the days that I was there. We would have tried to rip the C off of his jersey. We would have lit him up from every coach, every player, Reuben Foster, Minka Fitzpatrick, Deron Payne, Jalen Hurts, Jerry Jeudy. Everybody would have been on this dude's head. Like, what? Like, we don't do that. What's up with that? If we go out there and we get beat, we're going to handle all of our issues internally. But no guy is bigger and above this program. So you don't get to act like that. But I'm going to tell y'all exactly why he feels like he can't act like that. Is you go and you look at what Kalen DeBoer said in his post-game press conference about Malachi Moore. Oh, well, he's one of our guys and he's one of our leaders. And yeah, we expect him to use this and only bring positivity for the rest of the season. Man, damn that. What's up with that? Nick Saban would have said that? No. Would any of the players on the team said that? No. Kalen DeBoer is out here on Snapchat with these guys. He's got guys in his office all the time. Like, hey, call me anytime. Hey, I'm going to be your best friend. Whoop-de-whoop, this, that, and the third. That's bullshit. That don't help you win games. That does not help you control the talent and the level of guys that you've never coached before, guys that you've never had experience with at a program that you don't have. You don't know what it takes to win these kind of games. And you just come in here trying to be everybody's buddy. You try to be everybody's friend. Well, what does that get you? That gets you beat against Vandy on the road. That's exactly what that gets you. And even going back to the conversation I had with my running back coach, because we broke this whole game down. We talked about this from start to finish. And we talked about how players like myself, all the guys that I just named, from the time we stepped in that building at 18 years old, the values, the morals, the principles of that, the foundation of that university, of that football team was etched into our brain from the second we got there until the second that we left, along with being good people, good humans, good students, good people of service, good people in the community. That's not happening at Alabama right now. It's too much friendliness. So now you're sitting here going into week 7 like, well, we got to go back to square one and start all over. Well, how can you do that? Because you got guys like Malachi Moore feeling comfortable enough to go out there and display the type of immature, inept behavior that we saw on the field last night. And these are things we don't have to talk about. Well, their defense didn't do well against the run. They didn't stop Diego Pavia. Offensively, Jalen Milroe threw a pick six. It's not about any of that. This isn't about scheme, because you've got the players to be able to make the plays. You've got the coaches to be able to give you the plays to put these players in successful opportunities to go out and show what they can do. That's not the problem. The problem is what's in here for Alabama. I don't know if y'all can see me, but it's what's in here. It's what's in here. It's what's up here. You know what I'm talking about? Kalen DeBoer, I love him. I'm not here to badmouth him and talk bad about him, because I love what he has done, obviously outside of yesterday. But there is a huge hole missing in what the coaches are giving to the players, what the players are producing on the field, the way they represent that A that is on their chest. It's just not showing up. And it's so obvious to guys, to the people that are watching. It's so obvious to the guys that have played there, the people that have coached there, that Alabama now is just like everybody else. And you know how much that pisses me off to say that? People going to think I'm whining, crying, and complaining because, oh, big bad Alabama isn't the same anymore. Oh, well, you know why that pisses me off? I'm going to show y'all why it pisses me off. That pisses me off because I got some hardware. It's because I was somebody that did it. I was somebody that lived it. I was
got two championship rings for those who are just listening.
2 natties, 3 SEC championships. I lived it. I lived by the code. I played the game the right way. I listened. I had somebody there in Nick Saban who put me in a position to be accountable for my performance, good or bad, to handle myself with respect and with class. And we're just not seeing that. So Alabama, what's up? What's up?
What's most interesting about everything, like you didn't say anything about, hey, we didn't defend the run or contain the quarterback well. It's the way that Malachi Moore, by the way, if anybody missed what happened at the end of the game, he's throwing his arms up around, kind of throwing a tantrum, kicks the ball when the ref puts it down for a kneel. And I think a lot of people on the outside and fans and us in the media too probably roll our eyes sometimes when we hear about the process and the way Nick Saban goes about going things. And when he says on game day about being a transformational coach and not a transactional coach. But I think your feelings on that game and the way a lot of former Alabama players feel about the game, it's not that you lost to Vanderbilt.
No.
It's all the other things around it that lead to you losing to Vanderbilt. And this is what I wrote in my column today, which was, this is the first real sign that Nick Saban is gone. And this happens with Kalen DeBoer teams. He went 3-0 against Oregon in Dan Lanning when he was at Washington. He also lost to a 3-9 Arizona State team in 2022. He almost lost to a 3-9 Arizona State team the next year. He almost lost to
a pick six.
He almost lost to a 5-7 Washington State team last year back when he was at Fresno State. He lost to a 500 Hawaii team and a bad Nevada, New Mexico team. He'll win you the big games, but he'll also give you some head scratchers. And that is the difference for Alabama. Nick Saban went 123-4 against unranked teams. He won the games he was supposed to win. That doesn't always happen now. That is why Alabama feels like every other program now, because you're no longer going into every game without a doubt that you're going to win this game. There will now forever be something in the back of your mind when Alabama takes the field of like, there's a chance they might lose this game. And that is new.
And every team feels like they can beat Alabama now. And nobody felt, listen, I don't care what nobody said. Alabama, you're next, whatever. Teams did not feel like they could beat us, but now they do because of all the things that we're talking about. And even to your point, Chris, Kalen DeBoer's ability to cough away big, or not even big games, but small games. They were complete. Like, if we are going to get to the X's and O's, which I'm not going to dive deep into it because it doesn't really matter again, but they were out coached. They were outplayed. They were out efforted. They were out schemed. They were out everything. Absolutely everything from start to finish. And again, I'm going to go back to what I said. If you cannot corral these people, this level of players, this level of talent, this level of ego and all of those things, if you can't control that and you cannot put these players in positions to win every single game, not just the big game, the games you're supposed to win, the games you're supposed to win by 100. There were games we were supposed to win by 100. I told y'all we were tied with Citadel 14-0 at halftime. But guess what we did? We found a way to win. We were outplayed for certain parts of the game. We were outcoached for certain parts of the game, but we won because we put it all together. And so again, it pisses me off, man. It pisses me off to see everything. It's not just about, losing an era of dominance in college football. Like, I get that. And I know that for a lot of the fans out there that cheer for everybody other than Alabama, yes, this is great. But I'm telling you, it hits me in the heart because we put so much into building that program up, and to see it being torn down, not just because other teams are getting better, not just because the transfer portal, but because they're self-imploding by doing exactly the opposite of what we did to get the program there, to make Alabama different from everybody. It's a tough pill to swallow, man. It is.
I think it's interesting because, I did come into the show kind of thinking maybe we should talk about, hey, everybody knows Vandy's going to run and they still were allowed to run. But I think the bigger issue that you've hit on is the reason why there's no down years at Alabama. The reason why they never had, we beat Georgia and now we have a spot where so many teams trip up, and Alabama never did. And now we saw them do it. It is concerning. And I think it is, like Chris said, the first sign that Nick Saban is gone, but it's kind of amazing to watch. And I think, you think back to, we've talked about that Alabama-Tennessee game in 2022. That Tennessee team was really, really good. And why did we see that outpouring of emotion and the scenes and all that stuff when they beat Alabama? Because I think in most people's heart of hearts, they're waiting for that shoe to drop. They're waiting for, here comes Alabama again. And I do wonder if that affects them moving forward, that people are going to like to want to beat Alabama, but they maybe don't feel like the final boss anymore after you watch Vanderbilt beat them with a crowd that was still mostly Alabama fans in Nashville. It's pretty crazy. Chris, though, how far do they fall in the rankings after this?
This is where the rankings get impossible. I dropped Alabama from number 1 to number 3, and it's simply because they just beat Georgia. How do you evaluate what Alabama right now? They've allowed 67 points in their last 3 halves. So it's clearly trending in a bad direction, but you got to weigh the good with the bad. And when it comes to the CFP committee, they've shown they reward good wins more than they knock you for bad losses. And so Alabama's at 3. I don't feel great about them there, but I don't feel great about almost anybody in the top 10 at this point. And that's what's going to make the whole second half of the season really fun. So I just feel like Alabama has to still be ahead of Georgia because of what happened a week ago, but that can change.
After a weekend like that, you're never going to feel good about hardly anybody except Texas and Ohio State for the most part. On the other side of this, though, this is not the Vandy of old. And I think I need to go pitch a reality show in which Diego Pavia and Jerry Kill, and we'll throw Tim Beck in there as well, just go around to different broken programs every offseason and fix them, a la Kitchen Nightmares from our guy Gordon Ramsay and Restaurant Impossible from our Robert Irvine, from our Food Network heads out there. Because what they did at New Mexico State was unbelievable. And then coming into Vandy picking up Diego Pavia, I mean, if we're ranking quarterback portal moves, is Diego Pavia top 3? I guess you probably have to have Cam Ward number 1, and Diego is right there. This offense just gives people fits, and you saw it him running around. It looks a little bit like basketball on grass. You got some of those horizontal passes. It just seemed like all those options, the RPO stuff. It gave Bama fits, and a lot of that is because of the decision making and the toughness from Pavia. So a lot of issues from Bama. I think you're right, Damien. I think that the defense that was always kind of the hallmark of the Saban programs is they always had an edge. They were always physical. It doesn't seem to really be there. I don't know that I buy Vandy as a team that's going to be a serious factor in the SEC moving forward, but I do think that they're a team that you got to play well to beat, no matter who you are. And Bama didn't play well, and they lost because Vandy is pretty functional and very hard to prepare for defensively.
Vandy goes to Kentucky next week.
Beware, cats.
It's a bit interesting game there. Then they got Ball State at home. you win those 2 games, and suddenly you're like really talking bowl possibility, because the rest of the schedule, Texas, Auburn, South Carolina, LSU, Tennessee, like there are games that they're going to cause more fits for more people. And this looks like a Vandy team that can make a bowl game.
Yeah. Earlier in the day, before things really got crazy, I think this feels like it happened, last week. Missouri goes into Kyle Field, and Dave, you talked about earlier in the season, tough place to play. Mizzou finds us out the hard way. We got a voicemail
the hard way
here. Got some thoughts.
Hi, my name is Nicole. I am a very sad Missouri fan right now. I was so looking forward to calling and leaving a voicemail and throwing some shade at sad Husker Nate, because he's been throwing a lot of shade at Missouri the past couple weeks. But unfortunately, we came out and looked like a little bit of a fraud. But I also just want to say I feel like we got to talk about that terrible passer interference call at the beginning of the game. And, I know you got to play the rest of the game. I know our defense did not have an answer for Texas A&M, but gosh, momentum is such a thing. And I just hate to lose a game when it started out like that. It just stings and leaves a bad taste in your mouth. All right. Thanks for putting on such a good podcast. I discovered y'all recently, and I'm really enjoying it.
Welcome to our new listeners. And yes, Nicole, I'm sorry. As a Missouri fan, this is the program of fifth down and the flea kicker. You should have prepared yourself for something like this. I will say, I'm in some Mizzou group chats. There was a lot of anger in those yesterday. I can't say that there was a lot of surprise. I think the reality with Mizzou is they've been trying to show us all season we're not that good. We're not that good. We're not that good. Vandy, they gave us a fit. BC, Missouri's a good team, but I think that the idea that they're a playoff team in the event that they correct this and get to 10-2, when you lose as emphatically as they did, that might be the difference between getting into the playoff and not. And this team does not look like a team right now that's going to navigate their way to 10-2. Chris, what did you take from this?
Let me address the pass interference. Yes, it was a bad non-call.
Yeah,
but Missouri
bad
fans,
call, but you don't get to complain about refs.
Missouri fans complained about this for the entire rest of the game. Like it was 41-7 before a field goal basically as time expired. Like it wasn't even as close as 41-10. The problem is Missouri can't run the ball. Nate Noel only had 30 yards on 10 carries. The defense lost some guys from last year, and they just haven't put it together. So, yeah, sure, there was a bad no call, but there's a bad no call in every game. And no, that had nothing to do with the score being 41-10.
Mm-hmm. I do want to hit on, there's a trutherism thing we got to get to. So Will Lee, Texas A&M cornerback, goes by the nickname The Blanket. And Theo Weiss, one of Missouri's receivers, their second receiver, which I think is actually key in this, put on his Instagram story that he got to his room and there was a note with Will Lee saying, "Hey, I'm the blanket, but it's going to be real." And it was a Texas A&M blanket left in his hotel room. He shows up to the game the next day, hilariously wearing the blanket. And then Missouri performs the way that they did. Here, I was having some conversations during the game, and I think this even crystallized it when Mike Elko said after the game, you should probably ask Eli about what happened with the blanket.
Eli Drinkwitz, the Missouri head coach.
Here's your scenarios, okay? You've got either this is a rogue hotel employee that did this. You have somebody from Texas A&M, or, I guess Will Lee himself found his way into Missouri's second best receiver's hotel room to leave him a message, or somebody from Missouri's staff perhaps wanted to hype up their receiver and perhaps miscalculated that maybe he might post this on his Instagram story and create a gigantic issue that becomes like a game day storyline. I suspect the third option, there's some real possibilities there.
If it's not the third option, I'm very concerned about my team's security.
Yeah,
right. Yes. I was gonna say I'm thinking more option one here. I'm thinking rogue hotel staff. Yeah,
it's definitely possible. If you ever
12th man, I'm telling you, 12th man is crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
If you've ever been an A&M fan, it's not out of the question that you had a rogue hotel employee but the issue is, why wouldn't you do that to Luther Burden's room? if you're the rogue hotel employee. The fact that it's the second best receiver makes me, all my red flags were up all day. And then Mike Elko specifically saying you should ask Eli about that.
Well, also, I don't know if he matched up on him the whole game or not, or if Blanket was going to be on Luther Burden, because who else would know what the matchup is other than the Missouri coaches? You know, I don't know. I don't know.
I'm just saying the whole Blanket story stunk from the start, and and when you lean into the Blanket and you lose by 31 points, it's a tough look.
We'll probably find out early in the week whenever Eli Drinkwitz next speaks to the media. I imagine we'll get the answer on this.
He might pop up. Eli, this is the same guy who after beating Dan Mullen showed up in a Darth Vader outfit. Like he's, I think he likes to troll. He appreciates a good troll. So this was not, if this did happen, it's not completely out of character. And I think it actually would have been a funny thing, but I do think there was perhaps some miscalculation that if this was an inside job, I want to see the coach who did it, their face when they saw he posted it to his Instagram stories, because that was definitely not part of the plan. No question.
Absolutely not.
The late game, Miami goes down 35-10 in the fourth quarter, rallies, wins the game, survives, stays undefeated, stays in the driver's seat for the ACC title. Fellas, I gotta say, last week we were talking Heisman, and I said, I love Jalen Milroe. I think he's a great player, but for me, Cam Ward is a huge reason why Miami is still undefeated. He's more responsible for his team's success, and I believe in the fourth quarter and in the second half, this showed why that was going to be the case and why that was the case. Cam loves to make some mistakes. He loves to throw some risky balls. That pick six was horrendous. One of the worst pick sixes you'll ever see. Golly. I mean, bad decision, bad throw, bad everything. But they won the game, and they won it because of the way that Cam played. He saved them, and Miami has not had a quarterback that can rally them and pull them out of a disastrous situation, get our guy Michael Irvin off of his knees on the sideline. I will say, Damien, how would you feel if you looked over and like Sean Alexander or something was like on the sidelines on all fours? Like, I guess
we got you, like, yo, you're scaring the women, you're scaring the women. Like, get up, no.
The problem was it was so ridiculous, but also.
That's so Michael Irvin, too.
As somebody who loves the absurdist element of college football, I loved it. It was so ridiculous, but I couldn't help but smile when I saw it. Because, like, again, we heard it from Damien talking about the Bama game. We saw it with Michael Irvin. Like, this is a kid's game. It's college football. It's we're playing a game, but it means so much to people, and it's wrapped up in so many different things. I loved Michael Irvin on all fours. Chris, what did you take away from this?
Let's talk about the two non-calls at the end of this game that got everybody riled up. It got Miami Twitter really mad at
questionable calls, but the
got everybody mad at me. The first one is a target.
Hang on, Chris. Before you get into this, can I just say they were questionable calls. The tinfoil hats were coming out. I was getting it in my tweets. I was seeing people talk about it. So just so that we're clear, the ACC was trying to protect Miami, but then flagged them for a crucial unsportsmanlike conduct on a kick that nobody really saw live. Just so that we're clear that we're gonna. Okay, all right.
Yeah,
Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, no. I don't believe in any of the conspiracies on that. But Cal's got the ball with the lead. Quarterback Mendoza runs on third down. He takes a big hit, down for a minute, and they reviewed for targeting. They ultimately determined no targeting.
Looked like
I thought it was targeting, but I also don't know if I know what the rules of targeting are. I feel like I know less and less every single year. So that's not called. Miami drives down the field, immediately gives up like a 70-yard pass or something like that, and Cal does. And Miami is you get that unsportsmanlike penalty, puts them in a 3rd and 20. Miami picks up the 3rd and 20 on a dump off to Damian Martinez, and then the winning touchdown, which was an RPO pass out to the tight end.
Yeah,
it was a legal man downfield.
100%.
It was a pass. Close. It was a pass over the line of scrimmage with an offensive lineman who was 5 yards downfield. College only allows 3. So, yes, it was a legal man downfield. I tweeted the picture of it at the end of the game. And I also tweeted a minute later, Cal didn't lose because of the officials. Cal lost because they gave up a 25-point lead in the second half, and they played very conservative. That whole fourth quarter felt like they were just trying to run out the clock, and it didn't work. So I wake up this morning, and Miami fans are all mad at me. Whoa, what about Jaden Ott was out of bounds on this play? Oh, what about the face mask here? Man, I don't care, man. I'm just pointing out that there was an illegal man downfield there. And I also had the fans mad at me saying that the refs gave the game to Miami. So I got everybody mad at me. It's what I'm really good at, apparently. No, it's not a conspiracy. Yes, they may have missed a couple of calls. No, it wasn't why Miami won the game. Miami won the game because they went and took that game, and Cal tried to run out the clock, and it didn't work.
So what you're telling me is that somebody in Berkeley struggled because they were too conservative. Is that what I'm hearing? Is that what I'm hearing?
Pretty much. That's a good way to put it.
With that game behind us, Miami survives. They keep their spot reserved in the playoff for now. But Chris, when a week like this is so crazy and there's so many teams at the top losing, everybody thinks, well, everybody's out. Well, they're out. They're moving out. But somebody's got to be in. Right now, what does the playoff picture look like? Kind of based on your Athletic 134 rankings, Chris.
So based on my current rankings, teams 1 through 4, the first round buys, Texas, Ohio State, Miami, BYU. The next group, 5 through 8, hosting first round games, Alabama, Georgia, Oregon, Penn State. Then the next group, which would be traveling on the road, Tennessee, Clemson, Iowa State, Boise State. So what you end up with at this point, lock and change. But Alabama versus Boise for a right to play BYU. Iowa State plays at Georgia for the right to play Miami. Clemson at Oregon for the right to play Ohio State. Tennessee at Penn State for the right to play Texas. And man, oh man, I cannot wait till we actually have the playoff because these games are going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is going to be fantastic.
And I think the most notable part here about the playoff moving forward is it's the beginning of October and every SEC team already has a loss except for Texas.
Of course.
And almost all of these teams still need to play each other. Georgia's got Texas in a couple of weeks. Texas, Oklahoma this week. LSU's got to play a bunch of these teams still. Ole Miss has to play a bunch of these teams still. Texas A&M is the top of the standings at 3-0 in SEC play right now. They're 5-1 overall. There's going to be carnage in the second half of this season, and it's impossible to know what this final CFP field is going to look like. But every game is going to mean something, and there's going to be such a huge difference between getting the first round bye, getting a first round game at home, and getting a first round game on the road. So for all the people who be like, oh, it doesn't matter because they can still make the playoff, it's a big deal if it's a difference between getting a first round bye versus having to go play Penn State on the road in week 1 in the first round. Like that is going to be big in the playoff. I think is going to be a war of attrition if you have to play every couple of weeks to keep that going. So the playoff is going to be madness as we're racing toward it in these final 2 months.
I'm with you, Chris. Whatever we get, those matchups are going to be great. But specifically this week, you look at that possible bracket. I'm already salivating. Let's. I was looking at my trust fall, my locks. I think we'll just skip this week, right? We're not going to do any.
No.
We're going to look at them. Okay. We'll run through these real quick. Damien, you had Clemson as a 14.5-point favorite against. Who did they play next? Who did they play?
Florida State on the road.
Florida State. We thought that was going to be a huge game. It was not, and Clemson took care of business. Chris, Navy, 8.5-point favorite against Air Force. They dropped the hammer again. I think Navy's average margin of victory is like 23 points this year. They have been getting after it. And I had Stanford as a 9.5-point dog at home against Virginia Tech, and they got smacked. I think it was just a personal attack on me, the way that Stanford played. I didn't appreciate that at all. 31-7, they lost. You flip a couple touchdowns here, you flip a couple touchdowns there, you have a couple guys maybe don't play, and that's a ball game.
To be fair, they got some quarterback injuries, sir, and that did not help Stanford.
That's true. They did not. Our trust fall picks, Damon, you had Alabama as a 23.5-point favorite.
Do I need to say it again? I'm gonna say it. When you pass somebody on the ass, they shit in your hand every time.
They almost covered. They were close.
By the way, can we not trust Damien at this point? His last 2 trust fall picks were Ole Miss. Right, it was Ole Miss against Kentucky and Alabama against Vandy. Both heavy favorites. They've lost. It's not going well there. Me, on the other hand. I continue to be rock solid with this. I forgot who. I think I gave this to David. It was Tulane minus 14.5 against a UAB team that is floundering. They put up 70+ points on UAB and won
71 to
easily.
20. Wow, you covered that by, I'm doing my math, 37 points. That's wild.
Out.
I had South Carolina coming off a bye, hosting an Ole Miss team, and Ole Miss, maybe they're not frauds. We'll see. They took care of business in that game against South Carolina. Guys, let's get to the Heisman and Criesmans of the week. I did get a tweet this week that somebody said we should change the Criesman to the Lowsman. I don't know. Maybe we'll see from what the listener think. I like the Criesman personally.
I see what you tried to do there.
Yeah, it's
almost.
It's close.
If Cal had won, we would have gone Heis person and Kreis person, but unfortunately, the woke agenda did not.
Yeah. Chris, who is your Heisman of the week?
I'm going to give a shout out to like several teams here who are having really good seasons, and I think just kind of deserve to be recognized. Pitt, undefeated. Virginia, 4-1. Texas Tech, 5-1 atop the Big 12. Arizona State's 4-1. San Jose State's 4-1. ULM is 4-1 and just beat James Madison, which had put up like 160 points in its previous two games, 121-19. So shout out to a good number of teams there that are having really good seasons so far. And we wanted to say, we see you.
Damien, who's your Heisman of the week?
Man, I got to give a shout out to Connor Wegman. I thought he came out for Texas A&M, and I thought he balled. And I thought that the energy that he brought, the enthusiasm he brought to not only be back out there, but regain the confidence of his teammates, regain the trust of the fans, be like, hey, Marcel Reed, you're my dog, but you're my backup for now. This is still my team. And I feel like the rest of the team rallied around him, especially offensively. Connor Wegman, you showed up, you showed out. That's how you come off an injury and handle your business.
Missouri did not look like they thought he was going to play. It looked like they were ready for Yates and just.
Well, Eli straight up said Eli was kind of making fun of it on Monday. He said, you know, they got Wegman atop the depth chart, but I think he said it was just semantics. I agreed with him, but you know, sometimes I
thought the same thing too. I thought that because I even on my show this past Saturday, I asked Danny Cannell, I was like, could you see this being a problem for Missouri? Because they have adamantly said they were game planning for Marcel Reed. He's like, I mean, Connor Wegman, I don't know. And I'm like, okay. I just thought I'd ask. And like I said, regardless of that helped or not, still, Connor Wegman, you showed up and you balled, my brother.
You know, the National Coach of the Year race is kind of coming into play. And one name that I think is not getting enough love is my Heisman of the week, Bryant Vincent. Chris, you threw it out a little bit. James Madison was right in the thick of the Group of Five playoff bid. They were chasing Boise and Navy and Army and all these other schools, and they were 15.5-point favorites going to Louisiana Monroe, and they lose that game. Here's the thing with Louisiana Monroe. Brian Vincent takes over that job. They have not had not just poor history, very bad history. Terry Bowden, he took over for him, never won more than 4 games in a season. They went 0-10 in 2020 as well. This program has been to one bowl game ever. And they took a break, went to D1 AA for a little bit, but they have one winning season in Division I since 1980. And Brian Vincent has his team at 4-1. Huge win there. Shout out to the Warhawks. Massive win. And also, you mentioned it, Joey McGuire at Texas Tech. I had them to be my Big 12 sleeper / Big 12 champion last year. We'll see about that. But right now, they're looking down on everybody else in the Big 12 standings. 5-1. People gave this team up for dead after they get rocked by Washington State without Taj Brooks. They give up 51 and need a miracle defensive stop to beat Abilene Christian, but they have rebounded well. Impressive stuff. Your Criesman of the week. Chris, we've got a voicemail from Tucker to key up your Criesman of the week.
Hey, guys. My name is Tucker. I'm calling from Dallas, and I'm a huge Frog fan. I'm a huge fan of the show as well. Listen all the time. It's pretty much the only thing that gets me through the week and gets me to Saturday every weekend. So love what you guys do. Just calling in, wanted to hear you guys' opinions on what's going on in Fort Worth these days. Sonny Dykes has basically used up all of the goodwill that came from the national championship runner-up season in 2022. And now we just lost to a pretty bad University of Houston team. I'm not ready to give up on Sonny yet. I think he's a great guy and a good coach, but I'm just a fan looking for answers here because I am confused. Everything hurts today. So just wanted to see if you guys could shed some light on what you think is going on. Thanks again. Love the show. Have a good one.
Yeah, my Criesman of the week, TCU, which lost to Houston on Friday night. Houston, which had been shut out in its previous two games. And they made a quarterback change with Chris, and it worked, and maybe that's part of it. But TCU also committed 4 turnovers in this game. Houston had 4 takeaways on the season. And TCU is 8-10 since playing for the national championship game. And I don't think anybody could have pictured it falling this far, this fast. They go 5-7 last year. You lose the opener to Colorado. And just nothing's working. I can't figure out what this team does well. Every week it's something different. They'll pass for a bunch of yards in one game, then they'll throw a bunch of interceptions, or the defense is really bad, or they give up a big lead against UCF a couple of weeks ago. And Sonny Dykes was pretty frustrated with himself and the team after the game. So I don't know what the answer is. They lost Garrett Riley after the championship season. They hired Kendall Briles. That hasn't really worked. They made a defense coordinator change in the offseason, brought in Andy Avalos, the former head coach of Boise State. That hasn't really worked. I think his coordinator hires are not helping. Yes, they won a bunch of close games the year they went to the national title, but they earned their spot to be there. They beat Michigan to get in that game. And so I don't know what's going on. I think it's a lot of things. TCU's in trouble. That's my Criesman.
Damien, who's your Criesman?
If you had to guess, what would you think?
Whoever is being asked to tackle Ashton Genty is my answer.
No, honestly, that should have been my answer. Malachi Moore, come on, man, come on. Chris Carter, come on, man. We're all rooting for you. We want better for you. Like the whole spiel I went on earlier, that was just voicing my frustration. Now let me be a little level-headed here. You are a 2-time captain. You are somebody whose legacy is already imprinted at the University of Alabama forever. Now, with what you've displayed and what you have showed as a team, it is up to guys like you to not allow this to happen again. Screw the Bama way, screw, Alabama dynasty. Let's just talk about if you want to be a cornerstone piece of a championship team, that's not how you handle a loss. That's not how you handle frustration. I used to live by a quote all the time: humility with dignity, humbleness with pride. You got your ass kicked. It didn't go the way you wanted it to. What can you change about it at that point? You can't go back and beat Vandy. You can't. So what do you got to do? You got to take that. And as much as I criticize DeBoer for what he said, but now the onus is on you. You have to turn this into positivity, because if you don't, and if you don't start making an impact the rest of the season, if you don't start to show those leadership qualities and show that flip from what you just displayed, that blemish on your name, on your career, GMs, teams, fans, head coaches, everybody is going to remember you for that. So use this as an opportunity to rebrand, remold, reevaluate, just reprioritize, just redo everything. Do not let that happen again, because again, by no means is Alabama out of the national championship picture. No, by no means are they out of the college football playoff picture. But again, if you're going to be a cornerstone piece, like Kalen DeBoer said, he was one of the guys that when I came in here, he was somebody that said, I'm going to be your guy. I'm going to connect you, the new regime, with the old Bama way. Like, I'm going to be your guy. Well, it's time for you to show that, because you showed the exact opposite of that yesterday.
Well said. Damien, what if I told you that Alabama didn't have the worst week of any college football team in Alabama?
I would honestly, I'd tell you that you're full of shit, because in my honest opinion, that was the worst loss. I don't remember an Alabama loss that was more disappointing. So you're gonna have to baffle me here.
Let me see what I got here. So last week, Trent Dilfer wants to bring his grandkid up. We mentioned on the show, he says, hey, what's the big deal? There's 2 reporters here. It's not Alabama. Well, that take aged poorly over the last week. And then he kind of doubles down on it when he's asked about it Monday. He kind of says, well, were you there? Kind of a little condescending to the reporter. Maybe not that big of a deal, but the fans are mad about it. He wanted to ask about it, and getting defensive when you're losing games is not a good look. Later in the week, he's on the podcast, the radio show with the AD. Talks about how, like, the volleyball team basically is campaigning for volleyball players to go to Louisville because they're not, I think he said, fishing in the same pond as UAB. I wouldn't love that if I was UAB's volleyball coach or their athletic director who was on the show with him. Then he sort of apologized for it before the game. Then they go out give up 70 points to Tulane. He has to apologize after the game for not preparing his team physically for a game like that. Then he has kind of a long confrontation with John Sumrall after the game. What a week for Trent Dilfer, this week's Criesman. It seems like, the stadium empties out, obviously. Nobody wants to sit and watch the Blazers give up 70. A long week for him. Seems like the fan base is ready to end the Trent Dilfer experience. We're 15, 16 games in. That was very, very fast. And Trent Dilfer, you're my Criesman of the week. Damien, did I move you? That maybe
no, I'm not moved.
Okay.
You know why? Because there's a percentage of people out here calling for Kalen DeBoer's job already too. So, and he's what, 6 games in? So
yeah, something like that.
Listen, that was a hell of a week for Trent Dilfer, though. That I will say, maybe I wasn't moved past the point of, was this a worse weekend than Alabama? But that's a hell of a week, though. You're right.
That's a lot of unforced errors and doubling down on dumb things. Guys, I got to catch my breath after that week of football. That was crazy. I had trouble getting to sleep last night because I was just so charged, like watching the games. Made a late night Waffle House stop on the way.
Oh my god!
after the Arkansas Tennessee game. But thank you guys for listening. Please consider subscribing to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, Overcast, wherever you get your podcasts. We are there. We publish 3 podcasts a week on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays throughout the college football season. And subscribing to the podcast, it doesn't only help us, it helps you, because every time we publish new shows, they're delivered directly to your device. And leave us a review, any support that you guys can give us from listening. We always appreciate it. And check out our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Until Saturday. Call the Until Saturday phone line. We got a bunch of voicemails this week. Some better than others, but we like to hear your voices. It's always great at 316-462-9852. And check out the Until Saturday newsletter as well. That is totally free. Jana Bardall does a great job with that for us. You can find the links to the newsletter, the YouTube channel, everything in the show's description. For Damien Harris, Chris Vannini, I'm David Ubben. We will talk to you again on Wednesday and bring back the turnover chain. And maybe you don't have to come back from down 25 at Cal. Just a thought. Thanks for listening, guys.